You end your day. That's what we're talking about in this episode. Hi, this is Frank Buck, and this is the place to be if you want to get organized and make it look easy. I received this message from a reader named Mary. Hi, Dr. Buck. I've been working through the podcast archives and will check the blog too. I'm listening to your ideas about capture. I love them. However, I would love to hear you go through your inbox captured list at the end of the day as a podcast. How do you process? What do you think about to determine where to put things? Specifically, when and where do you process? At home, at work, at your computer, on your phone? What do you do if you miss a day? And when using a tool like Remember the Milk or Evernote, how do you check for duplicates as your system starts to hold a lot of information? My weekly review helps some, but over time, I definitely capture things more than once. And then it's hard to know if it's actually done, completed, or if I've just listed an extra time or two. I'm very much enjoying the podcast. It's practical, bite sized, and has so much I can implement each week. Thanks for sharing all you do. Barry, you ask great questions because the way you end today sets up a successful tomorrow. I have a checklist that I look at each evening and work through. It pulls together in one place everything that I need to look at to be sure that I'm closing out today and will be able to begin tomorrow organized. I go through this list on my laptop in the evening, generally while I'm watching television. Now, other people may want to do this before they leave work in the afternoon. The important thing is that you've identified all of those little things and listed them in that one place so that going through that one checklist, make sure that you're not missing anything. When you handle the little things well day after day, that's a big thing. It gives you the peace of mind that nothing is falling through the cracks. So here's my list. If you're watching the video, feel free to take a screenshot. I'm going to run through them quickly. There's 16 items. You might think it's overwhelming, but these go quickly. The overwhelming thing would be trying to remember all of them. I start by asking myself the question, what did you do to make today count? Looking back over the day, what was significant? What moved the needle? What am I proud of? Next to that statement is a link that I can click that takes me to a note in Evernote where I can answer that question. I keep a running log and I just add today's entry to the bottom. So having the link to that note right there in that little list makes it easy. I'll actually do it day after day. The next, our work shows up in a number of places. Communication that we need to handle shows up in a number of places. So this list helps me walk through the various places where communication is coming in so that I can make decisions about what I need to do about each thing. Word tasks clearly that will handle that stuff and then put the information where it needs to go. One of the places that new information shows up is in Evernote. I try to identify to dos through the day and immediately throw any to dos from an Evernote note into Remember the Milk. But as a safety valve, I have two what are called filter note widgets in Evernote Home. The filter note widget, it's a little thing that I only have to set up once. One of the widgets shows me every note I've created that day, and a second shows every note I have updated that day. So no matter how fast the day goes, I have one more opportunity to look and see if there's something I need to clarify or add more to dos over in Remember the Milk. Staying with Evernote, by default, everything that I throw at Evernote goes in one notebook, the inbox. It's what's called my default notebook. And yes, I will have seen these notes in the filtered note widget I just talked about. But what if I miss a day? What if I'm just too tired to make some of those decisions? Well, tomorrow those filtered note widgets would have been reset to empty. But what's in the inbox stays there until I'm okay with it and I move it to its proper place. So again, I have another shot at looking at those notes and making sure that they're the way that I want them. And then one final thing about Evernote is what's called the Quick Note or Evernote Helper. It's a digital version of the memo pad that lives by the phone. It's a place where I can jot down anything that comes up during the day. One keyboard shortcut summons it. And so while I'm on the phone, for example, when the phone rings and I answer it, just one keyboard shortcut, and there it is. I can jot down whatever I want. When I click away from it, it automatically disappears. It holds everything until I clear it. At the end of the day, I want to get that quick note back to zero. I delete the junk and anything that I just needed to copy paste real quickly somewhere else. And then if there's something of lasting value, I can copy and paste it in its proper home. And if I miss a day, the information is still there until I clear that little helper. Next on the list is I take a quick look at Twitter. Now, I don't have time to read everything that everybody I follow has written. So I've divided my Twitter, the people that I follow on Twitter, into several lists. One of them is called Platinum. These are the people who are special to me, and I want to read everything those people tweet. So in my list, I have a little to do to go over to check the platinum list on Twitter. And I have a link that takes me specifically to that list where I can read the tweets from those people who are most important to me. Next, I want to wish my Facebook friends a happy birthday. So I do that the evening before so that I'm not having to be on Facebook first thing in the morning. A link right there in that little checklist takes me not only to Facebook, but to the exact link that shows me my upcoming birthdays. Wouldn't it be nice to see what you've completed today? Well, the next item on the list prompts me to click the tab in my Today view on Remember the Milk that shows the completed items. Communication happens in a number of places, as I mentioned, and for me, one is the people that I correspond with on Slack. One of the organizations I work with, Slack, is the way they handle internal communication. Once a day, I want to make sure that I look at Slack to handle any messages sent to me or things in general that I need to read. So there it is on my checklist. There's no way that I can miss it. Next is to clear the physical memo pad. Now, I've talked about that Evernote Quick Helper, but the Quick Note or Evernote Helper. But I also have just a pencil and paper memo pad right here on my desk. Even though I'm a very digital person, it just helps to have that handy. By the end of the day, I want anything I've jotted down there to be handled and put in its appropriate places, and the little slips of paper put in the trash can. These days I have very little paper to deal with. During my days as a school administrator, it was a different story. At the end of the day, I want that physical inbox to be empty. So that's one of the items on my checklist. In other words, I want to have made a decision on what each of those pieces of paper means to me, what I need to do about it, and put it in its proper place. Back in those days, there were things coming in, there was paper that I handled that then needed to go someplace else in the world. So behind me on my credenza, I had my outbox. And then there were those papers that I needed to handle sometime later in the day. A parent was coming in for a conference, and I had some papers that I wanted to be able to put my hands on during that conference. What do I do with them until it's time for the conference? Well, I had a little drawer in my desk, a little shallow drawer that I called pending, and that's where those things were. So at the end of the day, I wanted in to be empty. I wanted out to be empty, those things put where they needed to go. And I wanted to have at least looked through the pending things to make sure that those things had been handled. If they were, file them away. If there were things to still handle for the next day, those would still be there. The Tickler file is a tool that's kept my desk clear for over 40 years. At the end of the day, I pull the file for the next day, and in that folder are all of the papers that at some time in the past wanted to come back to me today. Next on my list is my computer desktop. It's a wonderful place for documents that I have just downloaded or I'm in the process of working on, such as a Word document or a spreadsheet that I'm working on right now. I choose to have everything download to the desktop instead of a downloads folder, because if it's over there in a downloads folder, it's out of sight, it's out of mind. There's not a trigger to go and look there. So, because I keep my desktop clean, those few items that I'm working on right now really stand out. So, it is important to me to keep the desktop clear so that I'm not having to look for what is it I need to be working on versus what should have been filed away 5 days ago. Email is a problem for most people. I get my email inbox empty every day. I can forward emails that require action to remember the milk and then archive them. Next week's content is going to focus on the subject of handling email, so be sure you don't miss that one. Likewise, remember the milk, my digital task list of choice also has an inbox. I look at that inbox and make sure that any task that I've thrown at Remember the Milk today is clearly worded. I give each one a due date representing when I want to see that task again. I give it a priority representing what point in the day I want to see that task. Is it one of my Fab Five, one of the five things that's really going to move the needle? If so, it's priority one. Priority two, the things for the morning. Priority three, the things for the afternoon. And no priority, the things that I want to see in the evening. And I can also add tags to any of those tasks. So once I get all of that the way that I want it, I then move everything that's in the inbox, a list called inbox, to a list called organized, which represents everything else that I have in my system. All of the things in organized, I'm happy with the wording, I'm happy with the date, and so forth. Now, if you like what you're hearing about Remember the Milk, I've got something for you. If you join my email list, which you can do right now over on frankbuck.org, I'll send you an ebook absolutely free that'll show you how to set up and use Remember the Milk the way that I do. Last is to organize Remember the Milk for tomorrow. Now, I decide what my Fab Five are going to be, and I assign the priorities as I've talked to you about. I look at whatever is left over from my today list, and I leave it alone if everything's fine. If I want to change a date, if there's something I didn't get done today, and I'm not going to get it done tomorrow, I want to move it maybe to next week. I just change the date on any of those things. I'm free to change priorities, or I'm free to just leave everything just like it is. And I also click on the tomorrow button to take a look to see what's already waiting for me tomorrow and make sure I'm good with them actually being there for tomorrow. I'm good with the tags. I'm good with the priorities. So, and I'm ready for tomorrow. Mary, your question about putting the same thing in your system more than once and coming up with duplicate tasks is interesting and it's important. I would much rather have something on there twice as opposed to not at all. But after so many years of being in the habit of putting things in my system as soon as they occur to me, I seldom second guess myself. I trust myself that a task or other information, when it arrived, went immediately into Remember the Milk. So it's going to show up at the right time. And if I'm not sure both on Evernote and Remember the Milk. They're great search functions in both, and I can check on anything that I think I might not have put in the system. So, Mary, thanks so much for an important question, and I hope that the answer helps. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. This has been Frank Buck, helping you get organized and make it look easy.